Are you ready?
I always get nervous.
It's recording. It's on now?
Yeah.
Hot mic? Okay.
I get
mic, hot
nervous
mic.
like opening it up. Look how big that dog is.
Okay.
Look how big he is.
Is that a Great Dane? That's got to be a Great Dane.
It's gotta be. But he's like even big for a Great Dane.
That's the beast from Sandlot.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Feast or Famine with the Youngs.
We're the Youngs. I do this every time we have guests. We're the Youngs. She's not the Youngs. What happens when we have a guest that has the last name Young? Because Young is a common last name.
It is.
Then I'm going to say we
Collectively.
are the Youngs.
Collectively. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
Who are you?
we have Joyce.
Hello.
Hi, Joyce.
Hi. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
How are the Youngs?
We
Youngs are
are
good.
good. Thank you for being here today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What do you do?
I am a planner and designer of weddings and events. And it's my brand is called Be My Guest Events, but that is changing.
Is it? I didn't know
yes.
that. You didn't tell me. You're holding out.
I know it's under wraps right now.
Can we know the name or no?
So
You can tell us and then we'll bleep it because then people will be like, what the heck?
yeah, I just got really tired of people saying, "Oh, be my guest," like Disney, and I'm like, it's not really my brand. It's fine if that's
Yeah.
someone else's brand.
Let's be our guest anyway.
Yeah, but it's like that was always a thing, and people would sing-song it, and I was like,
You're like, I'm over it.
oh yeah. Then it's just like I've kind of made some momentum with that name, but I want something a little more elevated, a little bit more, of a brand that I can
Feels like you.
branch off to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Awesome.
Personal brand.
And guys, she's literally amazing. She's phenomenal.
you.
We have had the honor of working with her and she's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hope to have many more.
same.
Yeah.
We just worked with her in
Like 2 weeks ago.
like 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. She's literally the
was fun.
bomb.com.
Thank you.
But she came up with a really good topic for our podcast today because she is just that creative and amazing. What are we
Which is
talking about?
ironic.
Yeah. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about inspiration
And where to find it.
and where to find it.
I love it. When she texted me this, I was like, well, damn. I'm like, I can't even come up with that. I was like, that was good.
It's like Fantastic Beasts and where to find them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so good. Okay, well, you can start us off.
So I would say that inspiration is one of the things that in our like discipline or what we're doing with events, that's usually like, what's your theme? What's your
Yeah.
vibe? There's usually mood boards. And so that's always something that you want to find like that foundational part of like, what is our direction?
Yeah.
And so I find so often that when clients come to me, they're lacking that. They're like, we don't really know. They're coming to me with something so vague.
Yeah.
And my job is to give them something specific. I feel.
Yeah.
As a designer. So to me, I share with like what I'm influenced by, and people say, "Oh, I'm inspired by X, Y, Z." But I like to say what I'm influenced by because that really does give more of like a direction or kind of a, I don't know, like it kind of categorizes it a little
Right.
bit so that you know that, oh, that's probably Joyce probably did that.
Yeah.
She produced that.
Yeah.
Or, oh, that's someone else's wedding. So I think that's where it goes.
Yeah.
My inspiration's important.
Yeah, I like that. And it's not like a copy paste.
No, ma'am.
Yeah. So what are like some of the things that you see when you're planning a wedding that clients are like, give us a real life example of they're giving you this piece, but then you create it and you make it to be what they're actually wanting and they don't even know it maybe.
A lot of times it's where my clients are sourcing inspiration from.
Yeah.
So Pinterest.
That's good. Yeah.
Pinterest
Oh
is
gosh,
probably big
Pinterest
for
is
that, I
huge.
bet.
And I am a huge Pinterester. I love Pinterest.
I love it. I need to monetize that sucker.
Me too, honestly. Me too.
Like I took my Pinterest, my personal Pinterest board that I had since like college.
Yeah.
And like I put a bunch of like keto recipes as secret and like
Yeah.
made mine more like wedding specific. But Pinterest is like, it's a blessing and a curse
for
us all because there's not really prices attached to things. The scale could be different. It could be
Right.
just from an editorial and not an actual wedding. And sometimes the venues aren't the same. So I see a lot of clients with like ballroom venues, but they've posted a whole bunch of like outdoor garden.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Or they booked a barn.
That's so funny that you say that, because I was just like talking with a client and I'm like, okay, well, like for engagement sessions, for example, I'm always like, okay, well, what's the vibe? And we should put a tally mark on how many times we say the word vibe. But I'm like, what's the vibe that you guys are going for? Are you wanting street style? Are you wanting like in a big open field? And they, no joke, sent me a picture of this beautiful couple like kissing in front of the Eiffel Tower. I'm like, girlfriend, we are not in Paris.
we got arch.
You want to take me to
And
Paris?
you don't wanna,
Let's go.
You don't want to do that at the arch.
I'm like, okay, so you want street vibes, but I'm like, I wish we could be in Paris.
I mean, you can fly us to
You
Paris.
can fly
and we
us there.
Do that.
But
But
it's,
like,
it's important because
Yeah.
as the professional, we are
Yeah.
able to distill that, right?
I'm like, you want architecture, you
We
want
do.
structure.
We get
Yeah.
to read on it. And
Yeah.
that's why they come to us. That's why they're not, there's a lot of DIY brides or DIY couples who go it alone. And that's what you're missing. You're
Yeah.
missing that lens, that offered perspective of a professional to say, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you trust us to do that for you. And, I think that's really key that you were able to like show like, oh, we can take what you've put out and kind of distill it, and
Yeah.
edit and refine it. So I love that you capture that. and
Basically
get that with
taking
the
it as
clients.
inspiration and not literal, because I bet there's a lot of photographers out there that maybe they're earlier on or they're just not as good at honing in on that would see that and be like, we're not in Paris, so I don't know
I
what
don't know
you
how
want.
to do that. I can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not so much always getting the look for less, because that's also what I see. And this is not like a Pinterest bash session, because I do love Pinterest.
Yeah.
But it's more so like we're not always after the look for less. Maybe we're changing the scale of it. Maybe we're changing the colors. Maybe we're literally using that as a jumping off point to say like, okay, this is a street, vibes where we need a taxi. What if you're hailing a taxi and you're coming down the street for your engagement session?
Yeah.
Like capturing that energy.
Yeah.
And that's what us as creatives are doing. We're able to illustrate what they've said. And so I think it's important that we're not always after the look for less. And like, it's not we're cheapening it or anything like that.
That's good.
Yep.
We're offering, we're realizing what your dream is.
Yeah.
And that may have a price that you may not
And we're
be.
catering it to you specifically, your
Yeah.
budget, and just who you are. Like if you see something, you're like, I like that. And then on the day of, it's like, but does this actually like fit the vibe of your wedding? Yeah. Does it fit in?
It doesn't fit in. And a lot of couples don't start with themselves.
Yeah.
Like when the professional is helping you plan and figure out the vibe for your wedding, you're our muse. We're telling
Exactly.
you're telling your story.
Yeah, yeah.
You see that in the copy of every website. Well, we tell your story the way it's meant to be told,
Yeah.
and that's true, because a lot of times you think of, well, what else is everyone doing? And maybe because you're trying to figure out what is my vibe, right? So
Yeah.
you look to something else to see like what mirrors what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But we also say like, okay, like a couple of questions in my questionnaire, or when I'm, having a meeting with a client, I'm saying, go in your closet. And what do you see? Like, what colors are you gravitating to most? And they're like, oh, we've got some plum in there. And, oh, so-and-so loves gray all the time. I'm like, okay, that doesn't mean you're going to have a gray and purple wedding.
Right.
But it lets me know that, okay, you're more drawn to some more subdued colors.
Jewel tones.
So if I bring out pastel pink, you're going to be like, this lady's batshit crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it helps me kind of hone into those things.
Yeah.
Or like, I tell them, snap a pic of your family room.
Yeah.
Or your favorite room in the
I
house.
love that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because then
Wow.
I see like we built a whole mood or inspiration board around this couple's blue velvet couch. And it was
Interesting.
special to them because it was the first
Yeah.
couch they got when they moved in and merged the things.
Yeah.
And we knew, like, and no one walked into the wedding and saying, oh, this is just like so-and-so's blue couch. Like, no one got that.
Yeah. But
But-
it's very personal.
Yeah.
It was very personal. And
And
it
they'll
was
remember
there.
that.
And they'll remember that. And it was theirs.
That
So-
makes me like want to cry. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's why you hire a planner like Joyce.
Thanks.
I've never thought about it like that.
Well, it's not just a planner. I just the whole idea that it's event planner it's an event designer.
Because
it's quite literally a creative
Yeah.
industry job.
That's good, Alex. Yeah.
Thank
Because
you.
you're designing something from nothing or
Yeah.
from Pinterest boards.
But
or,
as you're like saying that, I'm like, what's in my closet? I'm like, I got a whole lot of black in my closet. And we were actually talking about potentially doing a vow renewal for our 10 years. We've since then changed our idea because we would rather take like an epic trip. But I did have like a Pinterest board of like what our style would be for it. And it was like very elegant, black tie, all black. Like I would be the
and ironically,
only person
if she
in
looked
white.
in her closet, you would see black
black.
and neutral clothing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love
So it
that.
works.
I love
And
that.
it doesn't have to mean that it has to be black wardrobe, but it could be like, maybe that's like the accent, or maybe
Yes.
it's like a deeper, maybe their whole wedding film is in Super 8 because they love, you know what I mean? So
Hire
I
me for
want
that.
to do one of those. But those are
Hire us for that. We do
expensive.
they
Super
are
8.
expensive.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to get couples to see the value of it.
Yeah. Well, we have
And it's
Super
really
8.
only expensive because of our cost, really. It's
Yeah.
not cheap.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
using that camera just is expensive just because of the nature of I can't get another one unless I scour and pay for another one.
Yeah.
Hey, eBay.
Yeah. Which brings me to where I find inspiration from. But I definitely want to hear like where you find it from. Like what are the things that
Like
you're
outside of like asking clients questions and stuff, like if someone came to you and said, I want you to plan a wedding event or just I want you to plan an event, just not for somebody specific, but you get free reign of the event.
what are the types of things that you would draw your inspiration from?
I design with a residential lens is what I call it. So I really love making little vignettes everywhere. Because I think events are places for people to connect. So many times it's mini reunions happening. People from college or people from your high school or, your travels and just family. Yeah. Although it should not be a family reunion, but it's so much of that. And that's the joy that you're seeing kind of facilitate. So I do like looking at interiors. I take notes and cues from that. We see a lot of neutrals in wedding design. And what did we see in living rooms and interiors? Everyone wanted the Restoration Hardware couch.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted white cabinetry. Everyone wanted marble everything, stoneware, organic materials. And so I think there's a little bit of give and take with interiors. I love looking at resorts and hotels.
Ooh,
I'm a
that's
hotel
good.
girl.
Yeah.
Got my start at the Ritz-Carlton.
Oh.
And so being in that lobby and seeing how we would change things out and how people would, interact with, maybe we probably shouldn't have that in there. And like, it kind of helped with me producing events, just seeing all of the things and just how a hotel kind of has to stay the same for so many people, but there's the things that they do that makes it, the elements that they bring in that makes it feel lived in and not just like you're in a model home.
Yeah.
It's welcoming.
And
welcoming.
that is really cool that you mentioned that, because when we walk into a hotel, the first thing that I do, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this makes me feel some type of way. And
Like we book based on vibe.
yeah,
To be completely honest.
to be honest, because I want to feel good in that space.
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
the best one we ever stayed in that fits every one of those notes is the Ramble House in Denver.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that Death & Co. is in the lobby.
Which
and
is an
it's
amazing
also
cocktail
another
company.
amazing vibe. And it's just the whole experience staying there was amazing.
Yeah, I would agree.
Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, restaurants.
Yeah.
I ask couples, I say, where do you go? Like a celebration just happened. You got, a master's degree or you got a job promotion. Well, how are you celebrating?
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll say, oh, we'll go out to our favorite restaurant. And I was like, describe that place for me. Oh, well, they've got these really cool olive green chairs. And the menu, oh my God, Joyce, the menu is like this. So I'm taking those cues. And as a professional, we're noticing and we're responding to that. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so you like this kind of look. So what if we stepped away from the idea of a seated dinner and we did it like we did the structure like that restaurant that you love? And it makes it feel, like you said, personal to them. So restaurants are a great place to look.
And they're more comfortable because they like that
They're
and they
used to
frequent
it.
that.
And
It's
it comes down
familiar.
to even the menu.
Yeah.
Even the menu.
It's familiar how they do the cocktail display or how they, the amenities in the restrooms that they have, like the mints or something, or like just all the quirky things that you can do at a restaurant. I think it's really cool. restaurants, obviously art, culture, museums and things like that. But I tell couples to show me like on Instagram their saves. Like they can screenshot it and they can upload it to our folder. But it really tells a lot about you. And so many people say, oh, we're foodies. And I'm like, oh, okay, tell me more about that. I'm like, tell me more.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's just like they'll have a bunch of like, we've gotten inspiration from a KitchenAid stand mixer that had this like hobble nail like exterior on it. And I'm just like, oh, what if that showed up in the glassware that we had? Like there's like the branching off points that you find because they're showing you what they love.
Yeah.
And to build something that they'll love, like in the concept of their event, that makes my job easier.
Yeah.
So that's where I would look. I'm probably travel. That's another
Yeah.
piece.
Oh, yeah.
Like where their travels or where they want to go aspirationally. Like maybe they want to go to the Amalfi Coast and
Yeah.
those beautiful orange umbrellas are lining the coast. I'm just like, do you like orange? Could that be a thing? Like what draws you to it?
Yeah.
So I would look at all of those places. And I also like to look at, sorry, it's a long one.
No,
you're
this
totally
is
fine.
good.
I
This is
also
great.
like to look at not so much visual piece, but like fonts.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really big about stationery being one of the guiding forces in our design because it takes on that character.
Which is how we start every wedding day, personally.
Yep.
Yeah, with
I
the
mean,
details. And
You
the-
literally just did a YouTube video
Yeah.
on like how
The details tell a story.
the details are going to set the tone for the entire day.
Yeah.
Right. So I tell them like, okay, what magazines or if you're subscribed to any like newsletters, like screenshot it. Like a lot of people have like email newsletters that they're subscribed to and they like the layout or they like the font that they use or if they like are a Vogue person or Elle or, Architectural Digest, like we look at that font style and I say like, okay, you're not a script couple. We're not going to do the swirly
Right.
script. Maybe
Yeah.
they're like typewriter vibes and it's
Yeah.
like retro or maybe that's vintage. Like it really does help anchor a lot of pieces with the font and typography.
That's really
Something that a
good.
lot of people probably gloss right over.
Yeah.
but not me. Okay.
Not choice.
Not necessarily
No.
planners and designers, but like just in general, you don't think about that. detail.
Yeah.
You don't, but
Yeah.
you read a lot on the wedding day, right?
Yeah.
You come a program, the invitation, the
Exactly.
menu, the signage, like
The seating chart.
The seating chart.
Yeah.
There's a lot that there could be moments where you can get there. Oh, okay, they're going for an Art Deco Gatsby vibe. Okay, got
And a
it.
designer
Yeah.
will connect the dots every step of the way
Oh yeah.
through every tiny little thing inside of your event.
Right.
Which is the beauty of hiring a designer for sure.
I'm putting that on my website.
You should. You should.
Copy by Veronica.
I
Young.
think, I'm just going to kind of lay it out there. I think the problem with our industry is that people tend to find inspiration from one another too often.
within the industry.
Correct. And there's not something completely wrong with that. There, it becomes wrong when you're like just flat out copying.
Yeah, you can
So-
pull inspiration from them and from what they're doing, but you still need to make it Veronica or make it Alex or make it Joyce.
Yeah.
Make it unique in the way that you approach the work.
Yeah.
Not replicating it. Because otherwise, like, and I say this all the time when I'm, when I'm kind of pitted against other people, like the competition, I'm in competition with myself.
Yeah.
But like clients are always saying, oh, why should we hire you? Or, well, we've been looking at XYZ.
What sets you apart?
What sets you apart? And I don't ever seek to say like, oh, no, pick me. But it's not why you should choose a planner, but like, this is why I'm different.
Yeah.
And let me tell you about my process. And if this does not sound like what someone else is telling you, then let that set me apart.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so I see so often, like you said, that the things I mentioned had nothing to do with weddings. When I have clients send me things, I say no more than 5 images can be from weddings.
Yeah.
And that's only because I want to see, do you like taper candles, which are long and skinny, or do you like short pillar candles? Or,
Right.
I'm trying to see like, okay,
What are they drawn to?
What are they
outside
drawn
of
to?
Thinking about weddings.
outside of thinking about weddings or like that kind of thing. But you can't replicate something because then why did you come to me?
Right.
You could do that yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm just cashing a check at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like I'm doing my clients a disservice if I'm just replicating something from another wedding
Yeah.
and just slapping my name on it and just saying, okay, they use black taper candles. Okay, we're going to use, and then we're going to, instead of, collecting images. And this is what I tell my clients all the time. If they may not have the funds to invest in a professional, I'll say, okay, well, collect some images. What do you love? Like,
Yeah.
once you collect that stuff, like a huge wide net, edit it down. Find, similarities. Like, what do you see? And write on a notepad, like, okay, I really like old Hollywood. Okay, I really like these shoes. Okay, why do you like those shoes?
Yeah.
What is it, and just kind of keep asking open-ended questions. Why?
Right.
Then you start editing. And as a professional, we edit a lot. Y'all edit a lot.
We edit
We edit a whole lot.
And when you're editing, what are you looking for when you're editing? And you're culling those images, right? What are you looking for?
I have an answer to this, but it's gonna take a minute.
No, go for it.
And it's funny you mentioned that because while you're talking, I'm thinking about like what I pull inspiration from, and I totally before we started, I actually almost never watch wedding films that aren't produced by me. And honestly, I almost never watch mine after a certain point unless I'm going back to pull something from it. I pull from actual movies and commercials and stuff, but I'm not actually looking at the cinematography and the color primarily. My first focus I'm trying to think of like inspirational videos that I've come from or like that I've pulled from as far as like movies go and stuff. And I can't think cinematically which ones come off the top of the head, but stories. I'm drawn to the story.
How they tell the
and
story.
how they tell the story and what the story consists of. And
Like,
building on that.
did they start at the very like high point of the story and then circle back, or did they start very, very, from beginning to end?
And how did you meet the people in the film? And
Yeah.
So I think
I love that.
I have always said I create story-driven films, and that's why, because I pull inspiration from the story
Yeah.
of all these, like
And then
even
this-
a commercial. I can look at a commercial and find a story.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always been huge on, we have a reel that's a minute long max, but I can tell a full story in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've done that.
And then the cinematography is like the creative side that comes, at a different
Yeah,
point.
I don't want to say secondary, but it is, to me, not as important, especially with something like a wedding.
Yeah.
Because with a wedding, you want it to be a story about the couple
Yeah.
and their family, not just pretty shots.
And for me, I think, there's a lot for me as a photographer. I would say one of the biggest inspiration things that I pull from is the movie The Titanic. Everything.
I will say the first thing I think of when I think about Titanic is
The color grading.
grading. Oh my God. The
the
color
color
grading.
grading on that film is the most beautiful thing I have ever laid my eyes on. And I don't think that will ever change. Just as a photographer perspective, because I also color grade our films. So I do all the color grading for our company. That is just like the most beautiful thing. But that will not work for every wedding.
No.
And we try to remain consistent within like our product because we want to know we want our couples to know what they're getting.
Yeah.
But I will say, we have Super 8. And Super 8 and the color grading in the movie Titanic go hand in hand. So if I have a couple that I know is like really just like they love the old school vibes, maybe I'm going to go just a little bit warmer with the oranges or the yellows and, make the highlights pretty flat because that's just like, it makes it feel old. So that's kind of like where I get my inspiration from. And another thing is, when I'm thinking about like really trying to get out of my creative rut in the sort of thing of like angles and just like photographing couples, I really lean back on nostalgia, like 1960s, like the black and white. Like there's nothing better to me than a black and white photo.
I like that the fact that you mentioned a creative rut, because in the creative industry, we all always get there at some point. How do you, as an event designer, when you find yourself in a spot where you just aren't feeling creative and you just have all this inspiration that you're being given, but you just can't get yourself to go anywhere with it? How do you pull yourself out of like a creative lull?
I think it's stepping out of your comfort zone, one, and stepping out into the world. Like so many times I'm behind my computer putting things together. It's like, okay, got to take a lap. I get in my car and I'll go to like my favorite stores. Like I'm an Anthropologie girl.
Oh, yes.
Can't always, go to the checkout line, but I can window shop.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur life. But it's one of those things that visual merchandising, like I love it. So I'm always like looking, like if I'm doing a lap around the mall or something like that, which you don't really get to do in this day and age of online shopping. That helps me see how people are, visually, creating things or
Yeah.
just laying things out. It's not always where you can just go jet set and go to a different place.
Yeah.
But there's so many beautiful hotels locally that you can go have coffee in or
Yeah.
people watch.
I was gonna
or-
say,
People watch.
one of the things that I love to do, and this is very seasonal, but like this is the perfect season for me. I
Patio season.
love just like to sit on a patio and watch people, and I think you have to kind of like train yourself to do this. But sometimes, I would say, venture to say most of the time, when people just sit outside, it's just like this like blanket of like, I'm outside, and they don't hear, they don't know their surroundings, or they're not really in tune with that, what's happening. And this is also because I have anxiety. So this is one of my methods of like bringing down my anxiety, but I will like notice the noises and like how the wind feels and things like that. And I try to do that on wedding days too, to really capture like what it feels like to be there. And with our wedding films, we'll do that with ambient audio. Were there a lot of birds around? Was it raining? Like things like that. And like, I really draw inspiration from just the nature.
Well, and when we go to Florida every year in February, we do it literally just to like reset, because burnout and just like you get so like tapped out at that point in the year. We will literally we have no plans when we go. We literally find
Just vibes.
some
Yeah.
patios and just sit. We were just there the end of February, and we sat the last day at this patio for probably 4 hours and just sat there
Yeah.
and did exactly what you said.
Refuel.
People watched and just took everything in and just, what's the word? We watched. What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Observe.
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 Why
I'm
did I
like,
not know that
I don't
word?
know. I'm
Observe.
like, I don't know where you're going.
Observed. We
Okay.
observed.
Yeah.
Yeah, observing is like key. Like that's all I'm saying, like to do. Like I'm observing when I'm looking at the different boutiques and stores or trying a new restaurant, and like seeing how, all those little details of like how they display their not hors d'oeuvres, but I'm thinking in events, for their appetizers.
Yeah.
Or like their small plates. Like what vessels are they using? Are they doing candlelight? Are they doing a little bud vase? Like what, and usually when it's a newer concept restaurant, it's a little bit fresher concepts and perspectives. So just doing something new, even if it's a new hobby, like going to yoga, you would be amazed at like, oh, I love the color pattern that this girl's yoga outfit was. Oh, that might be cool to...
You're good. You're good.
that might be cool to, kind of overlay into the design.
Yeah.
So really it's just like finding some newness, because you're, like you said, you're around all the things, and it's overstimulation sometimes. So finding some newness, I think, is really helpful. And sometimes an occasional glass of wine.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think doing that, but with doing that to find inspiration and doing that just to turn your brain off are far different things.
Yeah.
I think when you are tapped out and you go do that to find inspiration, I think that is almost worse, in my opinion, in my experience. But I'll go and do something that'll literally make me stop thinking about it, and then all of a sudden, boom, I have an idea because I just saw something,
Yeah.
Right. That
and
makes
then it
sense.
takes me right back into where I was at.
Yeah. So I have a question. You mentioned something earlier about like people like recognizing that Joyce created this. How do you draw the line or differentiate between your style of a design and then a couple's style, and what you're actually trying to create for them?
Like, what does a Joyce design look like?
Yeah, it should feel familiar to the couple,
Yeah.
because it's their wedding and they're my muse, but it also is produced by my brand.
Right.
So there's a level of standard of things. So like there's some like hard nose that I want. Like I'm not going to have Mr. and Mrs. signs on the sweetheart table.
Yeah.
We know who y'all are.
Yeah.
We know y'all just got married.
Yeah.
So we're not.
We just watched it.
We just watched it. So,
Yeah.
and I joke about that a lot, but I don't.
I would
enjoy.
say that that's an ick for me, but we already did that.
We
topic.
already did that topic.
Shout out to Marie. So it's one of those things where it's like, you'll know it's a Joyce or Be My Guest Events design because I want to elevate the familiar. And that's kind of
good.
what I've always wanted to do. Like, yeah, you might have had burgers and fries, but have you had it at a wedding? And have you had it displayed this way?
Yeah.
And has it felt this way? And like, yes, we can have beautiful flowers and a great band. But what is that flow like with the service? Is it seamless? Did you find your seat well? Like, is it calm, cool? Like, that's what we want, that energy.
Okay.
So I think that energy, is that something that's always captured on like a static image, like a photograph, but in video. And it just helps your guests be a little less like anxious. So I think it's the energy that I try to create, even though I might be running around crazy.
Yeah.
Let me run around crazy. I look like that, so your event can look like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that could be the difference is that residential lens as well, like having areas for people to connect
Yeah.
and not just your standard ceremony seating. I'm always thinking of, okay, is there a way we could do ceremony seating differently? Can we curve it? Can we do it in the round? Is it just going to be classroom style? Could we, I love that runway look that I'm dying for a couple to jump on the bandwagon with me on this because I haven't really seen it in St. Louis or in the Midwest, but more of like a runway style where they're facing each other
Ooh, I like that idea.
of a ceremony and just shaking it up. And that's going to be for that fashion forward
Oh my
couple.
God, I would die. I love that.
And now the logistics of like, okay, how do we, but that's
I'm
not
thinking through
my
that for
job.
video.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's-
not my
My
job.
wheels
There's
are
definitely
turning.
challenging, but that would be amazing.
That would be so
Yeah,
cool.
and it's like,
I'm
well,
up for the challenge.
yeah, and it's like, but that's where that collaboration comes in, where I
Yes.
say, hey, Youngs, what's up? So this is my concept. How could we make this work?
Yeah.
Because that might be what the couple's parents say, well, how are they going to get the video? And I don't want to just see the back of their head. Like, no, don't worry.
Yeah.
I've consulted with the professionals and they've got it. They're going to use lighting trees and we're going to see, so there won't be a lot of shadows or XYZ. So
We'll have to break the 180 rule on video so that we can get you coming down and then also get the
Yeah. Yeah.
But like that's where the brilliance happens because we've sparked something. Now you're kind of excited to come to work that day, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not just same old. And although the same old could be nice and comforting, I don't want to always press the easy button with events. And
Girl, I got excited when you told me that there was a tunnel on the wedding that we
Oh,
were
yeah,
gonna-
that was great.
Like that, just that, I was like, hell yeah. Like,
it-
that's different.
But that creates energy, right? Because
Yeah.
you're just like, ooh, it's like a sense of merriment?
Wonderment?
Bewonderment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Is
just
that,
like,
is that a word?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll
We're
make
making
it
it.
one.
We're made it one.
We're making it.
But like that's what you go from one spot to another, and we wanted it to have a different energy. Like, okay,
Yeah.
you're walking into this, you've left this very profound moment of the day, the ceremony. So I think it's an energy because the styles are going to change based on my clients. Like I've done a very Southern wedding where it's like monogram, anything if it's not moving, like
Yeah.
you know. And
Yeah.
I've done a very like city slicker, sleek wedding where it's like very minimal.
Yeah.
And it's like, where do you find Joyce? You don't need to find Joyce in it because it's my couples, but you need to see the production aspect of the energy and the flow and the
Yeah.
service, as well as like the overall cohesiveness.
So it's your expectation and how
Yeah.
how you set the tone for the event.
I would say so because it's not always going to be like, it's a Joyce event because we use a pretty pink pillow in the left-hand corner. Like, I don't
Yeah.
you know?
It's
Yeah.
more taking like something you see every single day, but you take more note of it because
Yeah.
it's just a little bit more elevated than what you're used to seeing.
Yeah.
Like you said with
And
the
I
burgers.
remember you talking about something like that with the last event that we did. You had light covers created, right? For
Right.
your event, which
Yeah.
is incredible.
Thanks, because they didn't have that already in their inventory. And when I asked them, and they were just like, I mean, yeah, we can do it, like for sure. And I think it's going to make their events even better that they can
Yeah.
offer that or upsell that to their
Yeah,
clients.
absolutely.
And that's what I hope to leave this industry better than I found it locally.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
so that's why I do what I do. And no, it's a light cover. At the end of the day, like, whoop-de-doo, do you want a cookie, Joyce? Yes, I want a damn cookie because
Yeah, and you know what? Without those light covers in that tunnel, those black lights would have stood out like a sore thumb.
yes.
Oh, and you talked about like the energy and something as simple. If we're talking about this last wedding,
Yeah.
something as simple as the table setups that we did there, that you did there. I'm not taking credit for that.
It's a team effort.
I just documented it. But there was a level of energy that just automatically was there just because of the tables, and it was because
It was very
It
unique.
wasn't a bunch of round tables. It wasn't a bunch of long. It was literally 4 different size and shape tables, just all over.
Noticed.
And I would love to hear like your thought behind that. And your inspiration from that.
Yeah, so that particular wedding, we wanted the couple actually settled on their venue, but they really had their heart set on the solarium, the Ritz-Carlton Solarium, which was an outdoor venue, which had a lot of like greenery and vibes there. And we were working against a ballroom, and not against it, but I wanted to work
a different vibe.
Yeah, I wanted to work with it and not just lean so hard against it, because then it feels like disjointed.
Yeah.
And so we kind of settled on like a courtyard vibe where there's like a smattering of like tables and a mosaic, if you will. So like in a courtyard, you usually see like those like handcrafted tables that have the mosaic pieces in them. And the mom was very influential in the design because she's a home gardener.
Okay.
So I started looking through some like gardening magazines because at that point I was appeasing her and appealing to her, what she liked, because she became the client.
Yeah.
The couple
Yeah.
was like, you know what, we don't really care. We just wanted to look good.
Yeah.
So talk to my mom about that.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I gotcha. And so more than that, because it's a ballroom, I wanted it to feel different. I knew people had probably gone to that space before.
We have photographed in that space
Wait a minute.
so many times.
not too many times,
Not even just weddings.
but several times.
Not even just weddings. We've done corporate events. In
It
that
looks like a
space.
different venue.
Thank you. I love that.
Yeah.
And that's what I was after, because I wanted them to not feel like they were at the venue that they didn't. That was their second choice, right? So I wanted them to feel happy that they selected it because it was their choice, right? And they came to me with a venue, and everything after that, like I helped them produce and bring to life. And so we did a very couple of rounds, but we did some feasting tables, some like large rectangle tables, some square tables, which was really interesting because it pushed mom out of her comfort zone. She's like, a square table? I'm like, yeah, like just
you're in your dining room.
Yeah, just trust me. Yeah, dining room. And and I think it really fostered that sense of like community a little bit, because you can lean over and say something to someone, and there was enough space. And they had a smaller wedding where they could have maxed the space if they wanted to, but it still made it feel a little bit more intimate by the way we did the table selections. And those are the things that I'm constantly thinking about, of like, what can we flip on its head? Again, it's like you collect the images, you edit, and you just notice like what is different, what is the same, and what can we really piece together.
And so you said that like when it came to the florals for this specific event, you were looking through like gardening magazines. Now,
Well, she said that even with the tables though. The garden magazine. And honestly, when you sent the room layout, the very first thing I said was, I love the tables.
Yeah, that is the first thing you said. And I think the difference is that, a lot of industry professionals would be like, okay, we want a garden theme. Let me go type in garden theme wedding on Pinterest and see what pops up.
Or lean heavily on the floral partner. Yeah.
And so when you're doing something like that and you're collaborating with other professionals, like the florist, like the photo video, how do you how do you show them, okay, this is the inspiration for the event? Are you showing them the photos that you specifically pulled? Like, what does that look like from your part?
I take a bit of the couple's images because I don't want it to seem too unfamiliar for them, because they might have selected this image that they really like. And so for that particular client, she told me in a meeting, she was like, her dress, she was like, it really reminds me of Grace Kelly. And I really love Grace Kelly. And I said, okay. So I started finding images of Grace Kelly that I felt like leaned into.
Which, when you told me that, I did the same thing.
And there was this one image of her through these shears. And I was like, damn it, we got to do a tunnel.
Yeah.
We have to do something with these, like, because there's just an air wall, which is like an air wall is a is a temporary piece of like the room that can come in and out to separate the rooms.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know that. I just learned something.
Just a
but
temporary wall.
Yeah.
temporary wall, especially in ballrooms, so they can max the space and break it up. And I didn't want this upholstered wall panel
Yeah.
in their space, and so we did away with that, and we did a bunch of sheer fabric. And I kind of was pushing for it to not be sheer, but it ended up being beautiful because I
Yeah.
didn't want it to feel dated. And sheers can easily feel dated. But that's just me thinking like light years ahead, and I gotta slow it down.
Yeah.
Well, and the way they layered it actually made it look like it was part of the room.
Right. And so it was, thank you. So it was great that they were able to really make it work. And so that picture of Grace Kelly coming, she was peeking through these, and she just looked so ethereal. And I could just see her walking through with her gown and just in that image. And so when I put together that like vision board or mood board, I call it a storyboard, because yes, you want to feel a mood, but like, what does that really mean when people say mood board? Like,
Yeah.
So I call it a storyboard. And that story was like, we wanted to feel like that elevated feel. And so I put together those images based on some of the ones the clients give me, based on sometimes that discussion after they send me their images. And I say, okay, what does this purple shoe mean to you? Is it because
Yeah.
it's purple? Is it because it's the designer? Is it because it's XYZ?
Yeah.
And then I'll branch off. And so I might find a shoe, if it was a Jimmy Choo shoe that they show me, like, oh, I just like that it's Jimmy Choo. I'll find a shoe that works with this newer, like evolved image.
Yeah.
And so I send that along with the different pieces of the event as how you would engage with it as a guest. So
Oh, that's
we'll
good.
do stationery. We'll talk about fonts. We'll talk about what the ceremony might look like. And that gives our partners a glimpse of what to expect. So they won't bring, like if it's a DJ, they're not bringing a red sequin vest to be on stage.
Yeah.
And I talk to them about what they're wearing too. I say, hey, it would be cool if you guys could wear blue ties or
Yeah.
something like that to tie it in, or what the
Tie it
servings
in.
to tie it in, or what the serving staff has. Like I've done events where we've made custom aprons for the catering staff.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
To really make it feel like, yes, you might have been in this
They're
space.
not just the caterer's staff. They're not just the hotel staff.
Yeah, it's our event. It's this one day thing. And so many times you hear from clients, well, it's just one day. The flowers are going to die. Yeah, the paper's going to get thrown away. You know, things are going to, but it is one day and you're going to experience it for that day.
Yeah.
So
And if
why
we have
not?
anything to do with it, you're going to experience it forever.
Yeah.
With those are heirlooms. It's a legacy that
Yes,
you're
exactly.
taking, and your pictures and your cinema captures how you felt
Exactly.
that day.
Yep.
And
It should.
It should.
That's
you
what
hire-
we do.
if you hire
us,
us,
it will.
It should. And so you want to kind of live in that. And so why not? You know, you're already investing so much anyway. So
Yeah.
I hate that argument of like, oh, it's gonna get thrown away. It's gonna die.
I love that you keep bringing up you made this decision, but why did you make a decision? Because when we have, when we're mentoring people, that's kind of what we do when it comes to like branding and like actually making their brand like unique instead of just being something that they threw together just because it matches what most of the industry is
We
doing.
call it the why exercise. And it's actually pretty challenging. And we've done it when we were doing our rebrand back in 2019. It's exactly what you were saying. It's like, okay, you like this shoe, but why? Not because it's Jimmy Choo. Why do you like
It's
it?
purple, but why do you like it?
Why
as
do you like
purple?
that it's purple? How does it make you feel? And
Why
like
this shade of purple?
exactly, like break it down because it changes your thought process.
And it literally gets to the heart of what that reasoning is.
Yeah. And so when we're doing branding, mentorships with other like companies, we have them do that exercise because it really gets down deep on like why you even are doing this in the first place and why you're resonating with certain things. And that's truly who you are. And if you want your brand to be a reflection of who you are, then we have like, it's a necessary step to do this.
And we work in such a personal industry that like we're working with people on one of the best moments of their life.
With the people they love.
With
You're
the people
seeing
they
their
love.
family.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we have to make sure that our branding and what we're putting forward is at the same level as what they're expecting from us. And with the design, that's what you're trying to do, it sounds like.
Absolutely. I think it's always that editing piece of like honing in of like, yes, you've got all these images and you get it from 40 to 20 to 15 or, and we're seeing the why. And then it's my job to figure out the how.
Yeah.
How is it going to feel like Grace Kelly came up into the Chase
Right.
Park Plaza? Like,
Right.
RIP. But it's like how it's the why behind all of those things, because the clients on average are not going to know where to even find the images, and
Yeah.
they're not going to usually pull,
They're not going to think to look in garden magazines.
Right.
or like to figure out what they're influenced by. Like
Yeah.
I'll ask them, usually it's celebrity, and I'll say like, well, what makeup style do you want to look like? Oh, I want to look like Blake Lively or Gabrielle Union or,
Yeah.
what's the girl from Succession? Sarah Snook?
Oh,
The
I don't know
redhead?
that.
I don't know her.
She's gorgeous. So it's just like, who do you, and that kind of lets me know, like lean into that style a little bit more. But it's just really helpful because I'm getting a glimpse to them, because again, it's our job to kind of make sense of the things and present them something specific that they can then go to their family and friends and say, oh, we're having a garden industrial chic wedding.
And
Yeah.
everybody's like, what's
Everybody's
that
like-
look like?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's,
and when the guests come, if it's things that are very personalized to them, they're going to be like, this feels exactly like them. And they might not even know exactly why, but they know it feels like them. And that's the goal.
And really, like, the whole Pinterest idea, like, we're not bashing on Pinterest. Pinterest
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
It's great.
But
Literally
I've
on
said
there
since
every
the
day.
beginning, it's a double-edged sword, because I feel like it stifled creativity to an extent.
Yeah.
Because when you're planning a wedding and you're trying to find inspiration for your wedding, what do you type in? Wedding.
Yeah.
And then you're pigeonholed to just wedding stuff. Whereas you're taking that and saying, oh, gardens, and then just looking through a list of garden stuff that has nothing to do with a wedding.
Yeah, we might say, when they say garden, there was a bride that she was like, I really love garden. And I was like, okay, show me the gardens that you like. And there's this, what she really liked wasn't the flower aspect. It was the stone, like statues that are
Yeah.
in gardens. And I said, oh my gosh, had I not dug deeper, I would have been thinking, flowers everywhere. We need to have, beautiful flowers. But she really liked that like stone vibe of like, there's a venue in Miami, or Miami adjacent, Vizcaya Garden. And they have these, it was in J-Lo's The Wedding Planner.
Yeah.
Where she like accidentally broke off the piece of
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
So, and I love that movie so much. As cliche as it is.
No, I love that movie.
But she was really drawn to those sculptures. That's how I couldn't
Yeah,
think of the word.
sculptures, yeah.
Sculptures. And I'm like, okay, like what if we, use that? What if that was part of the table numbers? Or,
Yeah.
because we can't have actual sculptures. Or if we had money to blow, maybe the serving staff were like sculpture people. Like
Oh,
how
gosh.
That would have been so
That would
cool.
have
how
been
weird
so
and
cool.
creepy do we want to get?
Yeah.
And that's where we scale back on the budget, or
Or
you know.
d'oeuvres are just standing there and you have to come to them.
Yeah, like
Oh, that would be so dope.
that's how you get to that spark in that event where it's just like, oh my gosh, this is so XYZ, because
Yeah.
we know her affinity for XYZ or their affinity for.
That's incredible.
That's cool.
Joyce, you're incredible.
It's all about digging
you.
deeper than weddings.
And
dig
that's
deep.
that's like I would say one of the biggest parts of our job, your job, is the creativity part, and really knowing how to pull that out of the couples that we work with.
And I think that's why I actually don't watch wedding films.
Yeah.
Is because I don't want to be pigeonholed to your cookie cutter wedding films. I know there's a lot of people that are doing crazy things, but
Yeah.
I want to do it like I do it.
Well, or because the wedding films, if you're doing it, in my opinion, should feel like that couple. So of
Yeah.
course you're not going to watch that, because it's not going to.
It's not that couple.
going to be that couple that you're editing for.
Right.
So yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really fun when you're able to dig deep and get to the heart of like what it is and what it feels like, because at the end of the day, that's why they came to the professional.
Yeah,
and I know
exactly.
I keep saying that, but I notice in my industry that a lot of people want to be a planner, and I get it, and they want to be a designer, and
I would say that there's a difference, but
and there is a difference, and
You
so
can be both, but you.
And for the ones that want to be a designer, I really challenge them to really study the images, study your client, because it's not enough to just replicate and put together a styled shoot and say, oh, they're great because it shows what you're capable of. But like, how capable are you to distill something that someone else has ask you to make sense of? And a lot of people, everyone has their own style, and your weddings are usually an illustration of that style.
Yep.
And not always is it a wedding. Maybe it's an event or a baby shower or a social event or a nonprofit event, and they have a style that they want to stick to. And that doesn't mean they have to be pigeonholed into an industrial vibe. Maybe they want to do a cool futuristic, lens of something. And so it's my job to really dig deeper and say, okay, what does that look like? If I were in that space, is it lighting? Is it the actual touchable things, tactile things?
Yeah.
Like really going through the senses. What does that room smell like? Are we lighting a Jo Malone candle in there because she's a super preppy bride that wants, monogram everything, and we really want to give it that feel.
Yeah.
So it's...
You want to transport them to to essentially the couple's world.
And that's reflective design, and that's what Be My Guest Events does.
Period.
Mic drop.
I love that.
That's a great way to end that.
I love
segment,
that.
I think.
Do you have anything else that you would love to add?
I have a favorite quote. I am a diehard Sex and the City fan.
I have not seen that. And that is such a show that I know that I would love.
The most I know about that show is Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode when Ray has to learn about Sex and the City.
That is as much as I know as well.
The city of New York is a character, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so the costume designer who has beautiful designs, Patricia Field. She has this quote that sticks with me, and it says, if you take a bunch of the classics and you give them new life, then you've got something great. Wait, hold on. I don't want to butcher it.
Yep. We'll wait.
You're
We'll
fine.
wait. It's worth the wait.
We've looked up lots of things in the podcast.
Yes, we have.
If you take the classics that are real classics and put them together in new ways, you got a winning hand. That's what she says.
I love that.
And it's all about taking all these elements and then, putting them together in new ways. Maybe that inspiration photo had a blue door. Maybe it's periwinkle, or maybe it's not a door. Maybe we make it a window pane or something like that. But it's really breathing new life into it so that is the stuff that gets pinned.
Yes.
And you're inspiring and influencing someone else. I don't want to just pin stuff. I want my stuff to be pinned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And somebody to come to your wedding and say, okay, I went to so-and-so's wedding and they had this, and they're showing that to their planner.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
That is so cool.
I want people to inquire with other videographers and say, I want it to look like a Young's film.
Baller.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Well, this was such a good topic. I loved this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is
love
all you.
this.
We were blank, and we're like, well, just ask Joyce what she wants to talk about.
Yeah.
I was needing inspiration for this topic, and I was like, boom.
That is the topic.
That is the topic.
Sometimes you can't outthink the room. You just gotta.
Yeah, that's really good. So where can people find you, Joyce?
They can find me. I live on Instagram.
Me too.
Which is I need to get back to my own website, but life. Instagram at Be My Guest Events. Events is plural. I am on Pinterest at Be My Guest Events PD, and that stands for production and design. And online at BeMyGuestEvents.com.
They'll be all linked
Yeah.
in the description of wherever you're watching and or listening.
Yep. Okay.
I'd like to put out a challenge to. I want to see where everybody that's listening. If you're listening, go over to YouTube and find the video version and leave a comment and tell us where you draw inspiration from and whatever it is that you're working on. If you're working in your garden, how did you design your garden?
Yeah.
And don't tell me a landscaper did it.
Or if
you
you're
had some say
redoing your
in it.
kitchen,
I'm just curious where people are pulling just everyday things, where you're pulling inspiration from.
I feel like I kind of had a little lesson today. I feel like Joyce just taught me some things, and I'm going to start pulling inspiration from different sources now too.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well,
love
give us a
that.
thumbs up if you like it. Share it if you like it enough
Yeah.
that you want other people to like it.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Peace.